Here was my to-do list for the past few weeks. I've been a Pokemon fan ever since I was a 7-year-old watching the Unova anime before school started. And yes, I did start with the Unova anime. Don't pity me, I'm already too far gone. I loved the series so much that I wanted to own every main series game at one point, and I enjoyed pretty much all of them. And then this happened. The foundation of Let's Go left me with a little hype. I didn't play Sword until nearly a year after release, and I only grew more ambivalent during that time. And of course, we have this game. You read the title, some of you are probably writing a funny comment attacking me for my wrong opinion, and you know what I'm getting into. I wasn't on board with the game from the very announcement back in February, being turned off by the art direction and convinced that a quote-unquote faithful remake was a shoddy excuse for getting less new content added than the Let's Go. To my surprise, I was mostly right. Before we begin, I just want to clarify something. If you don't own a Gen 4 game, specifically Platinum, then these games aren't quite as bad as I make them out to be. On their own, they're mostly inoffensive. Mostly. They give you an option for Sinnoh without angering Nintendo or paying extreme markup is what I'm saying. But, seeing as I own all 3 old games and did a Platinum Nuzlocke in preparation for the release, I think my logic is still founded. My name is Psyche, and without further ado...
Alright, bring it on!
Before I get into the game's true specifics, I know there's gotta be at least one person watching who isn't familiar with how the series functions. First of all, how did you find me? And second, Pokemon games are pretty simplistic RPGs. At least, that's what the main games are. You go around a region, catching Pokemon and battling trainers until you defeat all gym leaders, the Elite Four, and the champion. When a Pokemon faints another, it gains experience. With enough experience, it can level up. Once they reach a certain level, most Pokemon will evolve into a stronger form, though some still need stuff like evolution stones, trading, or friendship. Each of them have a type or type combo that dictates how they handle certain attacks. Said attacks also have types. They can hold items to give them an advantage in battle, and their abilities also play into how useful they are. This may sound like a lot, and there's still stuff I left out, but Pokemon's very easy to get into. A little too easy in this case, but I'll get into that later. These games take place in the Sinnoh region. It's very mountainous and layered. You play as either Lucas or... Your rival is the sugar-crazed Barry, but I named him Sonic, and the evil team is just Cyrus. What? He leads an organization? Yeah, no matter how many Pokemon they steal or bombs they set, I can't take Team Galactic seriously. Cyrus tries to remake the universe in his image using the legendary Dialga, but since you exist, he fails. Now that I have all the basics down, time for bitching! The game started with me having to walk to my modem so that the Day 1 patch wouldn't take hours. What does this patch include, you wonder? Oh, I don't know. The online features, the one new addition to the post-game, the room that Giratina's intended to fight in, the intro... Yes. The goddamn intro is locked behind the patch bigger than the game itself. I'm aware that game development is hard and sometimes things happen, but how does a game from the highest grossing media franchise of all time screw up several features and require a Day 1 patch? That just shows that the games weren't finished, and even with it, the games are still glitchy. I didn't find any as I was playing, but let's just say that you can do stuff that we couldn't have done easily in 23 years. Next up, we have the Dawn fan in the room. Look, I get it, you're trying to tickle the old nostalgia bone Gen 4 fans have, but this is the first time the games were deliberately made. Okay, here we go. Prior to Gen 7, the Pokemon games used tile graphics, similar to other 2D RPGs like Final Fantasy 1 through 6. Characters tended to be one tile big, so their heads were enlarged to make them easier to recognize. Despite that, it still looked pretty natural thanks to the plane. Even when X and Y came out, forcing the series into 3D forever, the characters weren't forced into being overly small. Here, however, they are. With characters like, well, everyone, but especially Rowan and Cyrus, it's not only jarring, but it also feels regressive, and the humans aren't free from this. Following Pokemon made a return, and putting aside the fact that they're slow and sometimes get in the way, they're forced to be small like you, missing on the idea of proper scaling. I mean, look at Onyx. He's shorter than the buildings. When I got to the Spear Pillar, I was just sad, because the cutscene introducing Dialga could have been so much more. An introduction as epic as the Light Trio from Gen 7. the Weather Trio in the Gen 3 remakes, the Life Trio in X and Y, the Bloody Tau Trio in Gen 5. Games that were on the DS, mind you, were better than this. I know Sword and Shield didn't look that great, but there's still a lot you can do on the Switch, and I wish they went as far as they could. I decided to make my one and only playthrough a Nuzlocke, and since Diamond and Pearl have the encounter variety of Action 52, it was very easy to map out who I wanted, when I wanted, and there were no issues catching most of the Pokemon I set my eyes on. No, seriously, I only had a few failed encounters that weren't rectified, and all but one of them were in the Grand Underground hideaways. Said hideaways are one of the few new features of the game, and I'm pretty mixed with them. On one hand, the hideaways allow rare Pokemon, Platinum exclusive Pokemon, and previously unavailable ones to be caught before the post-game, which does help with the terrible regional decks this game has. Dang! If I was playing Platinum, Flint would be an actual challenge! But on the other hand, the way they threw them in is just abysmal. Hideaways have their own version exclusives. Have Brilliant Diamond and want to try for Magmortar on your team because you know for a fact that it's superior to Houndoom and you feel like not going with Goku the Monkey for once? Well, fuck you. Shining Pearl exclusive. Better have a bad online service subscription and a friend to trade with. Oh, wait a minute. To add insult to injury, some of the Pokemon were left out, like Tangela, Yanma, Porygon, and Eevee. Plus half the Platinum Pokemon that are here are gimped in one way or another, and it all has to do with trading. Trading is a staple of the games, I get it, but when you can't reliably trade with someone unless you have a subscription on a system that's nearly double the price of the 3DS, then my sodium rises. Not like we should have two games anyway. On the topic of Platinum, actually no, I'll get to that later. Going back to the Nuzlocke, I went in expecting to have a comfortable ride, but not an entirely painless one. After all, I was deliberately keeping myself from using Infernape, Staraptor, and Magnezone, some of the best Pokemon in the game. I chose Turtwig in the Platinum Nuzlocke and Chimchar almost every other playthrough, so I felt like giving Piplup some attention this time. I did use Staravia up to the early mid-game, but once I had my team almost entirely filled out, it became permanently replaced with Togekiss, who was absolutely busted in this game. Serene Grace with Air Slash, the Fairy type, all the powerful special attacks it gets. I had to refrain from using it a lot of the time because it eventually grew a bit too strong compared to the rest. Luxray was my electric type since I didn't want to use Magnemite, and because Rotom is stupidly locked behind the post-game, and it ended up being the weak link despite hitting hard thanks to its moveset. Crunch and Iron Tail, there are your coverage options. I was originally going to use Houndoom for its typing, but its moveset shelved that idea and I went with Drapion instead for its defense and typing. I was also originally going to go for Gallade, but teleport-happy Ralt in the hideaways delayed me to the point where I had a Medicham by the time I considered going back underground for it. Finally, I got myself a Hippowdon for its bulk and to make up for the lack of early Gible access. Notice something about that team composition? There weren't any replacements from deaths, just revisions. Yep, I didn't have a single death in this whole run. Am I proud? A little, I guess, but I didn't earn a single victory I had except for maybe Cynthia, and it's all because of the experience share. Ever since the 3DS days, the EXP share was a key item that made it so every Pokemon would get experience when one was knocked out. The level curve was never designed with the EXP share in mind, so this can cause you to become over-leveled through normal gameplay and makes the games really easy. At least in the 3DS games you could turn it off, not once could you on the Switch, and the games use the exact same level scaling as the original Diamond and Pearl. This meant that I was always 10 to 15 levels above the opposition starting right after Rourke, and never ending until the League, and even then, late in the League. I didn't even need to grind to be on par with Cynthia level-wise, and the level ground was really unnecessary. Every game lets you get away with being a little bit under, even the originals did. Do the devs really expect you to skip every optional area? Because that's the only way you'll be appropriately leveled. Excuse me for wanting to explore and do everything I can before this game gets cooked. Can't you at least give us the option to turn it off? Forcing players to get automated experience when it was a choice before is like how Battletoads didn't let you turn off friendly fire. To add insult to injury, affection mechanics from Gen 7 were merged in with friendship, meaning your experience can be slightly boosted, you'll have a higher crit chance. Drapion can get crits 50% of the time with the right setup, I mean what the fuck? You can shrug off status conditions by yourself, dodge attacks, and even tank hits that would normally kill, just by raising friendship. In Gen 7, it felt rewarding, at least if you're appropriately leveled. In this game, it feels like I'm cheating. There were several times where I made a miscalculation, but then these bonuses saved me. Pokemon has always been an easy franchise, but this is brain dead. It's a real shame too, because late gym leaders in the Elite Four use Pokemon suitable for competitive play. Problem is, you're too strong for it to matter. Out of all the battles I had, I only struggled with 4. Rourke, because I never used Charm to lower Cranidos' attack stat. Maylene, because I foolishly tried to keep Togetic in against a Machop that knew Rock Tomb and had an expert build after Light Screen was set up, forcing me to switch to Hippowdon and have it take some hits. Fantina, because she managed to actually put Drapion in danger without me having to be reckless first, and Cynthia. Even then, since she was the champion, I could have played recklessly if I wanted to, since it didn't really matter if my Pokemon died at that point. Had this been a regular playthrough, it would have been even easier. Look, I know that I've just been ragging on with the problems I had, but I genuinely don't have much else to talk about. These games are remakes, so I'm reviewing them as such. The originals didn't have scaling problems, the originals didn't have brain dead difficulty, the originals, Platinum to be more specific, didn't have Pokemon availability issues, and that leads to my final point, the foundation. Why weren't these games based on Platinum? All you have to do is take Platinum, split it in 2, designate version exclusives, and there you go. Immediate improvement. You want to know why I mostly accept the hideaways? They're the only way to get Platinum Pokemon, and they were designed that way because of DP's terrible Pokedex. I made a list of all the fully evolved Pokemon in the regional decks, including middle stages that evolve by trade, ranking them on their usability through stats, move pool by level up in TMs, and abilities. Out of the 80 Pokemon I ended up listing, only 24 of them were considered good, and most of them were water or psychic type. Platinum added nearly 60 Pokemon for Sinnoh, and most of them are pretty good. Why couldn't we have the Platinum decks? Why couldn't the gym leaders have improved rosters before the postgame? Why couldn't Looker be here? Why couldn't the Battle Frontier be here for those who cared about it? Masuda's directorial role be damned. Platinum still has more content than these games, and yet these are still meant to be the definitive editions at the end of the day? Now, for the sake of fairness, I'll go over the few things I liked. 1. The soundtrack. I can't name too many tracks that I know I prefer over the originals, except for Cynthia because dang, they did a great job there. But I can say that most of them are still good remixes, and miles better than the midis we heard prior to release. The only tracks I have a real problem with are the Gym Leader theme, and the Team Galactic HQ. Despite those two, the soundtrack is still great, though I wouldn't expect any less from a Pokemon game. As for the second thing, the HMs. Sinnoh was where HMs were at their worst. They still exist, but you don't need to teach them to your Pokemon. It's also a nice touch how Bidoof and Bibarel were shown for all of them except Flying Defog, which Staraptor handles. However, I can't say I'm a fan of how they're used. You use them through the Poketch, and if you're playing docked, which I was, navigating the thing is so slow. You gotta press R to open it up and keep clicking the button until you reach the HM menu, and the cursor is about as fast as my Hippowdon. I always kept having to go through all the apps just to go from the dowsing machine to the HM menu. Would have been nice if there was a back button, you know, like in Platinum. And going back to HMs, the moves themselves were made into TMs, which are back to being single use. What was wrong with them being permanent, like in Gens 5 through 8? Even the devs got cold feet, because you get multiples of most of the HMs. Almost as if they weren't sure whether they should be single use or permanent. In conclusion, I only have one word. Why? Why are we given this glitch-riddled mediocrity as the official Sinnoh remakes that people clamored for years? Why do we have 2021 Switch games with less content than a DS cartridge? Why are they so shoddily put together that they even share the same ROM? Is the Pokemon Company seriously this apathetic nowadays? I didn't even want Gen 4 remakes as much, and I'm still disappointed. If you want to play through Sinnoh, play Pokemon Platinum. If you want a better Pokemon experience, play pretty much any other Pokemon game. At best, BDSP is just a standard Pokemon game, and at worst, it's an unpolished mess that makes Sword and Shield's blunders look less bad. Now if you excuse me, I'm going back to a franchise where the most recent entry is actually good. Adieu, until we meet again, my friends.